Something extraordinary just happened that most Americans completely missed. And if you're not paying attention right now, you're about to watch your wealth get destroyed while the people at the top protect themselves. While everyone was distracted by entertainment news and political theater, thousands of pages of documents quietly entered the public record. Documents containing names, emails, flight logs, business communications, and connections that expose a network so deeply embedded in American power that its revelation is shaking the entire financial system. And here's what nobody on Wall Street wants you to understand. When institutional trust collapses, when ordinary people realize the game is rigged against them, there's only one place smart money runs. Gold just crossed $5,000 per ounce. Silver is trading above $80. And we're just getting started. Before I show you exactly what's happening and why your financial future depends on understanding this moment, I need you to do something. If you've been watching the system unravel over the past few years, if you felt deep down that something fundamental is broken in how this country operates, if you're searching for honest analysis that actually connects the dots between corruption at the top and the money in your pocket, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel exists because the mainstream financial media won't tell you these truths. They can't. They're too compromised, too controlled, too dependent on the very institutions we're examining. Subscribe to Element Axis and turn on notifications because what we're discussing today will never make it onto CNBC or Bloomberg. This information directly impacts your wealth, your family's security, and your ability to protect yourself from what's coming. Let me be absolutely direct about what just got released. The new files contain thousands of references spanning emails, visitor logs, flight records, and business relationships. The names appearing in these documents aren't random people or minor players. We're talking about individuals who have shaped American policy for decades, controlled massive technology platforms that billions use daily, influenced media narratives across the country, and managed trillions of dollars in capital. Steve Bannon, the former White House chief strategist, appears in friendly email exchanges discussing strategies to rehabilitate images and manage public perception. Howard Lutnick, who currently serves as Commerce Secretary, is documented visiting private Caribbean islands and maintaining ongoing communications years after convictions that should have made such associations completely toxic. The former president's name surfaces thousands of times throughout various documents. Elon Musk appears, Brett Ratner appears, media moguls, tech billionaires, finance titans, all interconnected through the same social circles and business networks. Now, I need to be crystal clear about something critical here because it matters for how we analyze this situation. Being named in a document does not automatically prove criminal wrongdoing. The legal system, whatever remains of it, will need to work through evidence and allegations. That's not our focus today. What we're examining is the market consequence, the financial impact, the monetary implications of a moment when millions of Americans look at these revelations and understand at a gut level that the powerful operate by completely different rules than everyone else. Because that realization, that deep understanding that the system is fundamentally rigged, is the single most powerful force driving precious metals prices in modern history. Think carefully about what the average person sees when they observe America today. They see documents suggesting that some of the most influential figures in the nation maintain long-term relationships with networks allegedly involved in trafficking and abuse of vulnerable people. They see a justice system that prosecutes ordinary citizens with maximum force, while architects of massive frauds receive settlement agreements and walk away free. They see a political structure so completely captured by money that policy appears to be openly for sale to the highest bidder. They see media corporations so consolidated that real investigative journalism has been replaced by corporate propaganda and partisan cheerleading. They see a Federal Reserve that creates trillions of dollars from nothing to rescue banks and hedge funds, while their own purchasing power vanishes month after month. And they ask themselves one very simple but profound question. Why should I trust any of this anymore? That question, that fundamental crisis of confidence in whether the system is even legitimate, is what's pushing gold to $5,000 per ounce. It's what's keeping silver firmly above 80, despite what financial commentators dismiss as routine profit-taking. Because here's the truth those commentators will never admit. There is absolutely nothing routine about what's unfolding right now. We are living through a historic collapse of institutional credibility, and the smartest investors in the world understand exactly what that means for asset prices. Drop a comment right now and let me know if people are actually discussing this where you live. Are your friends, family members, and co-workers talking about these document releases? Is your local news covering it honestly or burying it beneath sports scores and celebrity gossip? I want to understand what the atmosphere is like in different parts of the country because Element Axis has viewers everywhere, and I'm genuinely curious whether this story is breaking through the media blackout in your area. Tell me in the comments what you're seeing and hearing in your community. Let me give you critical historical context because it helps frame what we're experiencing right now. In the early 1970s, America went through its own severe crisis of institutional trust. Vietnam exposed the lies behind military intervention and revealed the deception of the military-industrial complex. Watergate exposed criminal corruption at the absolute highest levels of government. Stagflation exposed the complete failure of economic management and proved the experts had no idea what they were doing. Right in the middle of that chaos, Nixon closed the gold window in August 1971, permanently severing the last remaining link between the dollar and actual hard money. What followed was one of the most explosive bull markets in precious metals that the world has ever witnessed. Gold went from $35 per ounce in 1971 to over $800 by January 1980. That represents more than a 20-fold increase in less than a decade. And it happened for one reason. Trust evaporated. Trust in government promises. Trust in the value of the dollar. Trust in the entire framework of post-war institutional arrangements. We're in an eerily similar moment right now. These document releases are just the latest fracture in a structure that's been cracking under pressure for years. Every new revelation, every fresh scandal, every clear demonstration that the powerful face zero real consequences for their actions, it all adds more stress to a system already buckling under the weight of its own corruption. And when that system finally gives way, when the public fully grasps that they've been played for fools, the monetary consequences will be absolutely massive. Now let's examine the actual numbers, because the data tells a story that the mainstream media desperately wants to hide. Gold closed above $5,000 per ounce earlier this week, an all-time record high. Today we're seeing a modest pullback with prices trading around $49.90. Silver dipped slightly from its recent peaks, but remains solidly above $81 per ounce. The mainstream narrative from financial commentators is that traders are simply taking profits ahead of major economic data releases this week. And on a surface level, that explanation is technically accurate. Some short-term speculators and futures traders are indeed adjusting their positions before Wednesday's jobs report and Friday's inflation numbers. But that shallow surface explanation completely misses the deeper structural reality underneath. The structural reality is that gold has climbed hundreds of percentage points over just the past several years. Silver has more than doubled in value. The trend is unmistakably and powerfully upward. And every single dip, every pullback, every correction gets aggressively bought by investors who understand that the fundamental driver behind this bull market, which is the accelerating collapse of institutional trust, is getting stronger with each passing week rather than weaker. Here's what's coming this week that could pour even more fuel on this fire. On Wednesday, we get the delayed January jobs report. This isn't a normal employment release. Because of the recent partial government shutdown, the data has been pushed back and will include the annual benchmark revisions to previous months. Bloomberg is reporting that these revisions could reveal a significant downward markdown to job growth numbers from the past year. In plain English, we might discover that employment was much weaker than the official figures told us. The economy might have been in considerably worse shape than we were led to believe. If that revision comes in badly, if the current unemployment rate ticks higher from its 4.4% level, if the headline payroll number disappoints expectations, we could witness a major reassessment of Federal Reserve policy expectations across financial markets. And that reassessment would be extraordinarily bullish for precious metals because it would signal interest rate cuts coming much sooner than currently anticipated. Then Friday brings us the Consumer Price Index report for January. Economists are forecasting that core inflation, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, will show the slowest annual rate of increase since early 2021. If inflation is indeed cooling faster than the Federal Reserve expected, that gives them significantly more room to begin lowering interest rates. And rate cuts have historically been one of the strongest possible catalysts for gold and silver prices because non-yielding assets become dramatically more attractive when the opportunity cost of holding them decreases substantially. So if we get a weak, disappointing jobs number on Wednesday combined with a cool, benign inflation print on Friday, that 1-2 combination could trigger the next major explosive leg upward in precious metals prices. But here's the absolutely critical part that mainstream financial analysis completely and deliberately misses. Even if the economic data comes in strong this week, even if jobs surprise significantly to the upside, and inflation runs hotter than economists expect, the core fundamental driver of this precious metals bull market remains completely intact and continues strengthening. That driver isn't interest rate policy. It's not inflation data points. It's not GDP growth figures or Federal Reserve policy statements. The driver is trust. Or more accurately and precisely, the total absence of trust in the system. And no jobs report, no inflation print, no central bank communication is going to magically restore the faith that's being systematically destroyed by these document revelations week after week. No economic indicator is going to make people suddenly believe the system is fair and just when they can see with their own eyes that it's fundamentally and irreparably corrupted at the highest levels. I need you to hit the like button right now if you're finding value in this analysis. Not for my personal benefit, but because YouTube's algorithm actively and deliberately suppresses content that challenges powerful institutional interests. Every single like sends a signal to the platform that this information matters to real people, that viewers want to see this kind of honest analysis, that it deserves wider distribution across the platform. Every like pushes this video one step closer to reaching the thousands of people who desperately need to understand what's happening to their wealth and their country. Don't wait until the end of the video when you might forget. Pause for 2 seconds and do it right now while you're thinking about it. Let me connect this situation to something that should genuinely concern every person watching, regardless of your political affiliation or voting history. One of the most disturbing aspects of these document revelations is understanding who actually controls the technology platforms we all use every single day. The technology executives whose names appear repeatedly in these files aren't just running social media companies or manufacturing electric vehicles. They're actively constructing surveillance infrastructure that would have been completely unimaginable and unacceptable just one generation ago. We're talking about integrated systems that combine your voting records with your tax return data, your bank account information with your citizenship status, your complete health records with your detailed purchasing behavior patterns. Total information awareness dressed up and marketed as consumer convenience and personalized service, and this entire surveillance apparatus is being built and controlled by the exact same interconnected network of individuals whose names keep surfacing again and again in these document releases. You don't need to be labeled a conspiracy theorist to recognize the obvious pattern here. You just need to be willing to pay attention to what's happening in plain sight. If you believe, as I strongly do, that we're rapidly moving toward an increasingly monitored and controlled financial system, where your basic ability to conduct transactions depends on your social compliance and obedience, where your bank account can be frozen instantly for expressing politically unpopular opinions, where central bank digital currencies give government institutions complete real-time visibility into every single purchase you make, then you understand intuitively why physical precious metals aren't merely an investment strategy or portfolio allocation. They represent a form of genuine freedom in an unfree system. Gold and silver are the only major asset classes that can be held completely outside the institutional control grid. They cannot be frozen by a government agency with the click of a mouse. They cannot be tracked by a surveillance algorithm monitoring your behavior. They cannot be devalued overnight by a keystroke at the Federal Reserve creating new currency units. They're private, they're portable, and they're permanent stores of value. In a world where literally every other form of wealth is being systematically brought under institutional control and monitoring, that independence and freedom has never been more valuable or more necessary for protection. Share this video right now with at least one person who needs to see this analysis. You know people in your life who are asking the exact same questions, who feel the same deep unease about where things are heading, who understand that something fundamental and important has broken in how this country operates. Send them this link directly. Tell them to watch the entire presentation. Because we're building something genuinely different here at Element Axis. We're creating a community of informed people who absolutely refuse to accept the official narrative at face value, who refuse to passively watch their wealth get systematically confiscated through monetary inflation while being told by experts that everything is perfectly fine. We become stronger and more resilient when we share critical information and support each other through the turbulent times ahead. Now I want to directly address something that inevitably comes up whenever I discuss these interconnected topics. Some viewers will claim this sounds overly political, that I'm choosing sides, that I'm using financial analysis as cover to push a partisan agenda. Let me be absolutely and completely clear about this fundamental point. This is not about Republican versus Democrat. This is not about left-wing versus right-wing. This is not about conservative versus progressive. Go outside your house right now and randomly ask 10 complete strangers on the street if they trust the government to work in their interests. Ask them if they genuinely believe the system functions fairly for ordinary working people. Ask them if they think the wealthy and politically connected are held to the same legal and ethical standards as everyone else. 9 out of 10 people will give you the exact same answer, regardless of how they vote, what party they support, or what their other political beliefs might be. The system is rigged. They might disagree sharply on absolutely everything else under the sun. They might hold completely opposite values and priorities about social issues, but on this one single fundamental question, there exists nearly universal consensus across the entire political spectrum. The game is fixed, the deck is stacked, the rules don't apply equally, and that bipartisan recognition of institutional failure, that shared understanding, that cuts across traditional political divisions, is the most powerful driver of precious metals demand that we have witnessed in modern times. Let me show you exactly who is accumulating physical metal on the other side of these short-term trader pullbacks and profit-taking episodes. Central banks around the world have been purchasing gold at absolutely record levels for multiple years now. Over 1,000 metric tons purchased annually in both 2023 and 2024. And they're not slowing down their accumulation. They're actually accelerating their purchases. China has methodically added to its official gold reserves every single month without exception. Russia has been accumulating aggressively despite international sanctions. India has been systematically building its position. Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds have been loading up on physical metal. These aren't retail traders looking for a quick, profitable flip. These are the largest, most sophisticated, best-informed institutional players in the entire world, making a deliberate generational bet against the long-term viability of the dollar-based financial system. When the smartest money on the entire planet is all moving in the exact same direction simultaneously, maybe it's worth paying very close attention to what they see coming. Let me give you my complete framework for thinking strategically about precious metals in this environment. I firmly believe we're in the early stages of a multi-year, quite possibly multi-decade bull market in both gold and silver. The fundamental driver is the ongoing collapse of institutional trust and credibility, and that collapse is clearly accelerating rather than slowing down. Every new document release, every fresh scandal, every repeated revelation of corruption and abuse at the highest levels adds more fuel to this fire. The economic data matters at the margins and can affect short-term price movements. Federal Reserve rate cuts will accelerate the move higher in metals. A recession would accelerate it even more dramatically. A banking crisis would send prices into absolute orbit. But even without those additional catalysts, the primary trend is clear and powerful. Capital is flowing steadily out of paper promises and digital entries and into hard, tangible assets. Because paper represents nothing more than a claim on a system that fewer and fewer people believe in with each passing day. The current price levels, $5,000 for gold and 80 plus for silver, are not the top of this move. They're not even remotely close to the top. When you properly adjust for monetary inflation, gold would need to reach significantly higher levels just to match its 1980 peak in real purchasing power terms. And that calculation doesn't even account for the absolutely massive monetary expansion we've witnessed since then. Silver, which uniquely functions as both a monetary metal and a critical industrial commodity with serious supply constraints, has even more dramatic upside potential from current levels. The gold to silver price ratio suggests silver could easily double from here just to return to normal historical relationships. And if we experience a genuine monetary crisis, the kind that causes ordinary people to lose fundamental faith in the dollar itself as a store of value, we could witness price levels that seem completely unimaginable and impossible from today's perspective. Tell me honestly in the comments what it would take to restore your personal trust in American institutions at this point. Is there anything that could realistically happen, any reform or accountability or systemic change, that would make you genuinely believe the system operates fairly? I'm sincerely curious what you think, because I personally read every single comment. My strong suspicion is that for the vast majority of you watching, the honest answer is no. The damage is too deep and too extensive. The trust has been completely shattered. And once trust evaporates to this degree, it doesn't magically come back easily or quickly. It requires decades of consistent, honest, transparent behavior to rebuild what can be destroyed in a single dramatic revelation. And we're not getting consistent, honest behavior from institutions. We're getting scandal after scandal, revelation after revelation, each one confirming and reinforcing what we already suspected, deep down. Now, let me be completely honest and realistic about the risks ahead, because I'm not here to paint an unrealistic picture or tell you this will be a perfectly smooth ride upward. There will definitely be pullbacks and corrections along the way. There will be volatile days and weeks when mainstream media financial commentators declare the rally finished and strongly advise you to sell everything. Don't fall for that narrative. Don't get shaken out. The volatility and turbulence is simply part of the journey in any major bull market. Short-term momentum traders will get violently shaken out of positions. Highly leveraged speculators will blow up their accounts on both the long and short sides. But the fundamental case, built on the collapse of institutional trust, the continuous debasement of fiat currency, and the flight to tangible real assets, that case isn't going away or weakening. It's actually getting stronger and more compelling with each day that passes. The documents are publicly available now. The names are in the public record. The connections and relationships are visible and documented for anyone willing to look honestly. And the response from the justice system has been exactly what you would expect from a completely captured institution that serves power rather than justice. Deafening silence, deliberate inaction, active protection of the powerful at the direct expense of everyone else. This isn't speculation or theory. This is documented, observable reality, and the financial implications are crystal clear and unavoidable. A system that fundamentally cannot or will not hold the powerful accountable is a system that cannot possibly maintain broad public confidence. A system that cannot maintain public confidence is a system whose currency is operating on borrowed time. Gold and silver represent the exit strategy from that doomed system. They always have throughout history. The only real question facing you is whether you position yourself intelligently before the crowd figures it out or after the desperate stampede begins. The jobs report drops Wednesday morning. Inflation data comes Friday morning. The document releases continue week after week. The trust collapse accelerates relentlessly. And precious metals are holding firm near all-time record highs, despite what the mainstream dismisses as routine profit-taking. This is not routine. This is historic. And you're watching it unfold in real time. If you haven't already, subscribe to Element Access right now and turn on those notifications so you don't miss the next critical update. Join the conversation in the comments below and share your perspective. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message and understand what's really happening. And always remember, in a system where paper promises are backed by nothing except blind faith and fundamentally corrupt institutions, gold and silver remain the only forms of real money that require you to trust absolutely no one but yourself. Protect your wealth, question everything they tell you, and I'll see you in the next one.